A few months ago, I made a bold claim that hybrids would become redundant and fairway woods would be taking over. Well, this is the new Mizuno JPX1 9 wood, and I think we're going to start to see a lot more 9 woods in bags. So let me tell you a little bit about the 9 wood before we get into who's it going to be for, and more importantly, what club is it going to make redundant in your bag. It has 24 degrees of loft on the head, which is actually very similar to a lot of the iron models that we would see at a 5-iron loft. Some slightly stronger, some slightly weaker, but sits in around them. It has 3 degrees less than the 7 wood, which is the club that I said every golfer should be having. The 7 wood sits at 21. They do have the adjustable hosel on them, so you are able to move it up and move it down in a variant degree of loft as well, and also make them upright. Unlike the 5-iron though, it has a lot of real estate backing it up to give it that little bit more forgiveness, and it has that shallower face to pop it up into the air. Now, the first thing to know is when you actually put this club in behind the golf ball is actually how much loft 24 degrees looks on a wood. I've had the 7 wood in my bag for a little bit now, and I've got quite used to it, and I would say compared in head size as well, it does shrink down a little bit. It's not as sort of stubby or compact as what a hybrid would be. It has that shallow look to it, but you can really see a lot of the face due to that loft situation that is on there. And when you've got it compared to a 5-iron which is, you know, only 1 degree of loft difference, it looks like it's going to just pop it straight up in the air, as where the 5-iron still looks like you're going to get that more penetrating, piercing flight from it. But the big thing for me, when you've got this club in behind, like I say, because of that loft aspect, and probably for a player who struggles to launch the golf ball, it's going to be a real sort of confidence boost in knowing that, okay, if you were maybe using that 5-iron, the 4-iron, put this in, it's one that I know straight away, A, I've got the forgiveness because of the size of the head, but also I just feel like it's gonna go up in the air. I don't feel like I need to try and help it up too much. Just looks like it's gonna sort of cut under the golf ball and just pop the thing straight into the air straight away. Yeah, and it's done exactly that. Exactly that. Just popped it up, and even on the miss strike there, slightly toey, I've still managed to launch the ball up and get it airborne. Now, we are going to take a look at what distance and how they compare to the 7 wood and the 5 wood a little bit later on, but where would you actually use these woods? Where would the 9 wood actually come into your game when you're out on the golf course? So one of the examples where it might be good out in the real world here on the golf course is a scenario like this, a long par 3 where you might have that 4-iron, 5-iron in hand. And looking at this, that would petrify me, as it would do a lot of golfers. But with the 9 wood, we know now it's easy to launch. We know now it's forgiving. So standing in a scenario like this, I would feel a lot more confident. Instead of staring down a 5-iron, looking at a hole that is 200 yards, I can step up, know that this thing is going to launch, and know that it's going to get up to that green. Popped up, little fade on it. But you know what? It's going to catch the green. Front right corner, easy job there. No real effort to get this thing up. So those tee shots where you want to get it going, you may sacrifice distance, but on a par 3, it's a really good club. And another great use for the 9 wood is one that I talked about with the 7 wood. It's chipping around the green, one of my favourite uses here. And especially if you're a little bit nervy with chipping, it comes in fantastic. And because it's got a little bit more loft, and because the shaft is actually a little bit shorter, it's even better for this. So when you've got that little bit of a nasty lie and you're worried about duffing it, this really helps you out. And because of that extra loft, it's not coming off as fiery, so it's actually even more controllable than the 7 wood. So simply just adopt your putting stance, make a small putting stroke, let the loft and the actual sole of the golf club help you out, and those little shots become very, very easy, and all of a sudden you will become a wizard around the greens by just using the 9 wood. Let's take a look where I think this 9 wood really comes into its own out on the course. and it's here, a scenario like this where the ball is sat down in the rough. The top of the golf ball is actually below the level of the grass here, but when I place the 9 wood in, I can just about get it down towards the ball. If I were to use an iron here, I would say that I would probably use a 7 or an 8 iron. I would expect to lose about 25% of my distance. I wouldn't get the height. I would generally expect it to run a little bit more. The 9 wood though, this is where it's going to be coming in very useful. What I would simply do in this scenario, I'm going to grip a little bit further down. I'm going to place it a little bit further back in my stance than I normally would. And I'm going to aim to almost just chop down on the rough there. And because of that shallow face, it's going to glide down a little bit more, enable the ball to get above the equator of the face, still get that launch. Yes, I'm going to lose some of my distance. I would say maybe about 10-15% compared to that 25% of the iron, but I'm going to get it launched. I'm actually going to get it out there still. So it's a shot, like I say. This is where we saw a lot of the pros using this, especially at like the PGA Championship, US Open, Tommy Fleetwood, etc. They were using this out of the long rough to still be able to muscle it up to greens from the scenarios where they would normally be hitting an iron from that distance. So grip down, ball ever so slightly back from where I would normally have it, and I'm just going to try and hack down on it a bit more to pop it out of the rough. And beautiful, pops out, runs up, couple of bounces, and we'll work. Has it got the green? No, just shy, but it has come out nicely, and you can even see where the strike was on the face here. It's managed to get above that equator line, and that's why it launched up out of that lie. Let's take a look though at what it actually compares to and what you might replace it with. So now we know how the 9 wood can be used out on the golf course. How is it going to compare to those clubs that I mentioned at the start of the video, the 7 wood and the 5 iron, and ultimately which club will it be replacing in your bag? Well, actually looking at some distance numbers here that we've got from our GC3, we can see that the gap is absolutely perfect when we look at the 7 wood versus the 9 wood. So the 7 wood, that carries 221.5 yards, as where the 9 wood sits in at 214 yards. Now the 5 iron, that was only going 192 yards. And for me, what I found to be true from the 7 wood and the 5 wood, like we said in the other video, is how easy this thing pops up and then stays in the air. When we look at actual launch angle for all these clubs, we see that the 5 iron, 15 degrees. We see that the 7 wood is actually down at 12 degrees, and then the 9 wood is also at 15 degrees. But what is a little bit different is how much spin these clubs are getting. They all sit in the 5,000 category, but the 9 wood spinning the most, spinning a little bit more than the 5 iron. And what is even more impressive about the 9 wood, and where I think it will really help the average golfer, is how straight this thing goes. When we look at some of the flights of these golf balls here, from the 5 iron to the 9 wood, even the 7 wood, what we notice is that the 9 wood was popping up and it stayed straight. Yes, the 5 iron was launching in a similar sort of degree, but what we see is the curvature on the golf ball, in that the 5 iron was starting to drift off a little bit more and wasn't finding target as much. What is also worth noting is the peak height with the 9 wood versus the 5 iron. The 9 wood is nearly 20 feet higher, nearly 30 feet in fact. It's 26 feet higher, so it's popping up there, climbing a little bit higher, and just managing to maintain its flight towards the target. And for me, if I was an average golfer, when I'm looking at the 4 iron, the 5 iron, even potentially the 6 iron, we might see an 11 wood coming, who knows? I want to get it up in the air, and I want to try and keep it straight, because statistically the 5 iron is the club that is hardest to hit and one that we lose the most shots with out on the golf course. Take for example a scenario like this here, where, and comment down below where you sit on the divot debate, should you be able to move it out of a divot when you get on the golf course. If I found my golf ball here in a divot like so on the golf course, and I had that sort of 200 to 210 number that I wanted to go, and I was thinking, I really need to get this on the green, I want to, you know, maybe tie a match up or find the green. From a scenario like this, I am just not confident with actually getting this ball out of there. The iron doesn't get down to it. Yes, the leading edge might help it dig it out, but actually the shot itself, flat, horrible flight, didn't really get where we wanted to. It went 144 yards, that one. Now, if we bring in the 9-wood into this scenario where we've got the ball in the divot again, sat down, once I put it in, just looking at the face and seeing that loft, I've just got the feeling that this thing is going to pop up out of there and get the ball a little bit more airborne and be easier to launch out of this scenario, a bit like we saw from the rough on the golf course. Pops up, gets the spin, and it's launched out of there. The ball carrying 180 yards there, so it's gone nearly 40 yards longer than we saw from the 5-iron in the same scenario, and was just easier to use. So let me know what you think on this topic here. Are 9-woods gonna be the clubs that we're seeing even more out in the wild now? Are they gonna be the one that gets rid of the hybrid, even replaces that 5-iron, and we start to see iron sets starting at a 6-iron, and the 9-wood be a staple? Comment down below, let me know. And why not watch another video here to see if you're making any common mistakes when using your golf clubs?